Pretty straightforward in today's video. I'm going over my suggestions for FNaF World 2. As FNaF World is a pretty fun spin-off, and I would love to see it have a sequel. So let's heat up those pizza ovens and dive into this new adventure. The setting of this what if is the Pizzaplex, as it has the different zones and environments for an RPG already built into its DNA. As for the roster, well, the cutoff for FNaF World 1 was FNaF 4 and its Halloween update. So for this potential FNaF World 2, its roster will have everyone from FNaF's sister location to Help World 2, with Secret of the Mimic being a potential expansion. And there's not much info about it as of making of this video. So we'll get better versions of the Fun Times, Mediocre Melodies, and the Gramlock animatronics. That's a name for you. As for the game's story, the Rockstars are fed up of being the overlooked group of animatronics, so they take over the Pizzaplex in retaliation. So it's up to you to go through all the Pizzaplex's zones to free them from the Rockstars' control. Well, that's the official story. In reality, we're playing as Vanny, and FNaF World 2 is how she and Malhare took over the Pizzaplex by using this game as malware for Malhare to infect the Pizzaplex. So we would need to find the yellow rabbits hidden across the different zones to get the canon ending of the game. Onto gameplay now, and it's just FNaF World 1, but with quality of life improvements like official controller support, easy method of unlocking rare characters that doesn't take a month to get them, and the ability to turn off the flash effects. I still remember how bad my mic was when FNaF World was originally released, and also the reason why there isn't any footage of FNaF World in the background, as flashing effects in the late game are just that bad. I think that the potential sequel just needs the ability to them to be a toggle. But the overworld free roam would get the most change, as I imagine it being similar to Security Breach, as we are in the Pizzaplex after all. And what I mean by that is, unlike FNaF World 1, where the overworld and the sections are on one big map, what I propose for FNaF World 2 is all the sections are their own map, as the Pizzaplex and the zones are a bit more complex compared to FNaF World 1, where that could be on one big map, but Pizzaplex is a bit more, has more layers to it, as it is a more vertical space as well. So best way for that to be handled would be everything to be its own map, like, and everything's connected through transitions. So for example, the main area to access all of the different zones is in the atrium, with it also being where the shops are to get starting items, or in Middle's case, going back to him after you've been through all the bins to scrounge enough money to afford his buffs. And naturally, most of the different zones will also have their own shops with more powerful items within them. As for the enemies and other NPCs, I can see them being either Pizzaplex refreshes of them, or in areas like these staff service tunnels, ruined versions of the FNaF World 1 models. Same thing for overworld bosses too, naturally, with the sole exception being for DT Music Man, as for him, I can see the Rockstars just taking advantage of his faulty bouncer mode to make him a boss for us to fight. Speaking of enemies and bosses, on to quickly go over the battle system and for this potential FNaF World 2, it wouldn't shock you to know that the battle system is just going to be almost the exact same as FNaF World 1, but with the same quality of life improvements I mentioned earlier, like an indicator to know when a character is ready to attack, and more animations for specific attacks, or at least one generic attack animation and one special attack animation for that character's special attack. To quickly go over the boss battles, they're basically the same as above, just what you expect from the FNaF Road giant bosses, mostly themed after the areas they're found in, like with Bouncer Snow Cone, and considering the theme of enemies having Gramlock redesigns and a ruined one for the original design. For example of this, for the base game story, you'll need to fight a Glamrock version of Bubba, but then within the depths of the Pizzaplex, in order to progress with the other endings, you'll need to fight a ruined version of FNaF Road Bubba in order to continue. Onto the unlocks and collectibles now. For the most part, they will be the same as the original game, but there will be a few outliers, like in order to unlock El Chip, you'll need to defeat the hidden boss, Ruined Chipper. And for rare characters, while you can still wander around the Pizzaplex hoping for an encounter, but now you could unlock them through the minigames as well. For example, if you beat the high score in Final Blast, you unlock Twisted Freddy instead of trying to find them in an random encounter. A major unlock for this game would be the Gramlock animatronics, as you would need to clear the area in order to add them to your party. Although I am two minds on the specifics on how you would get them. Like, would you need to beat their ruined counterparts to unlock them, or would you just need to beat a themed boss of this area to unlock them, or even both? And in addition, in order to add Shattered Glamlock Freddy to your party, you will need to find extra parts of the other Glamlocks and beat Prototype Freddy to unlock Shattered Glamlock Freddy to your party. I think most, if not all, of the special unlocks will come under what I just described. Like, in order to unlock Malhare, you'll need to go through the canon ending of him taking over the Betaplex, but do a last minute U-turn on him and defeating him. Moving into miscellaneous stuff, I think a quest system could be added into FNaF World 2, as the Betaplex is a big enough place, and I think it's big enough to add NPCs to give quests to do alongside getting to the end of the game. These quests would range from the simple, like beating a certain amount of enemies, to tying into a few of the game's hidden bosses. And for example of a more bigger ongoing quest to do alongside an ending, in the Glamrock Road where you're able to meet all of the Glamrock animatronics, there's also a bit of a museum area where they display a bunch of old relics from the older Freddy locations. So I think that the ongoing quest would be that scattered throughout all the different zones are the stolen relics from the museum, and you'll be tasked to find them and bring them back to the museum to possibly do throughout your playtime to complete. Finally, chips and bites. Not much to go over already. As I've said multiple times, they would get Grandma designs and ruined ones. Like in the early game, bites would be the ruined versions, and with the late game ones being Glamrock versions. Though I imagine there'll be a few outliers, like the Reaper, as I imagine that bite being more powerful the more ruined it gets. On to chips, quickly. I could see them adding a few more new chips, like one major one being themed around DJ Music Man, as he's just far too big to be a normal party member. So him being a chip at least includes him in gameplay in some way. Maybe you could have a chip that's a passive buff or health regen, and or a chip that acts like the combat chip, where his hands slam down on enemies at random intervals. With that, we reach the end of this video. What do you think? Do you like my ideas for FNaF World sequel? If not, then what would you do? But in any event, thank you for watching.